Hello, Sue.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we do have five people on, which I believe at this time in the membership is a quorum. So I'd say let's get started for this March CMAC meeting. Let's start. Lolita,
Recording in
can we
progress.
get a roll call?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Damian Cole,
Here.
Juan Martinez, Kathy Stanfield, Kelly Orr, Michael Lansborough, Hanan Stoffer, Judy's here. I think I see you, Pana. Ryan Bernadette,
Here.
Sierra Henderson, and Sutine Chen.
Here.
And we have Paul Malakowski from the public, Graham Dollarhide from RTC, transit planning manager, Shay League, senior transit planner, Vanessa Lacer, planning director, Alex Cruz, senior transit planner, and Jim Gee, public transportation operations director, and myself will be today's. That's roll call, and we have a.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 2, verbal instructions required by Assembly Bill 219. I'll read the disclaimer regarding outreach. If you are participating via Zoom to provide public comment during the meeting, please make sure your computer or device has a working microphone. Use the chat feature to submit a request to make a comment. When the time comes to make public comments, you will be invited to speak. If you are participating by telephone to provide public comment, you should have contacted RTC agency services prior to 4 p.m. yesterday and provided the telephone number you would be calling from, as well as the item or items you wanted to comment on. When the time comes to make public comments, you will be invited to speak. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan.
All right. Thank you, Marquise. All right. So item number 3, public comment. Public comment may pertain to matters both on and off the agenda. Comments are to be made to the committee as a whole and not to individual committee members or staff. Committee members may provide public comments, and public comment is limited to 3 minutes. It looks like we do have at least one obvious public comment. Paul, would you like to go first?
I certainly would. Thank you very much. Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name is Paul Malakowski. I'm a resident of the 89519 zip code, and more specifically, I'm within walking distance of the Raley's anchored shopping center at the top of the hill in Collin Ranch. It's a pleasure to speak with this committee again. As some of you may recall, I served as a public member on this committee for several years. I'm here today to advocate for geographic equity in our transit network as part of the Move More with RTC initiative. Here's the problem. While I'm a frequent senior e-bike rider and I deeply appreciate the planned safety improvements at the Lakeside and Plumas intersections of the McCarran Loop, I think we must address the total absence of public transit in the southwest quadrant of the McCarran Loop. Basically, from West 4th Street all the way down to Kitsky Lane, we have what could be called a transit desert that forces every resident, senior, and worker onto our roads in private vehicles. This contradicts our complete streets philosophy. By way of comparison, I'd like the committee to look closely at the precedent set by the Somerset and Verdi flex ride zones. Those areas share the exact same profile as the Southwest: challenging topography, high-speed regional roads, and a growing population. If the RTC can successfully deploy microtransit to the hills of Somerset, there is no operational reason why we cannot provide the same connectivity to the Skyline and Collin Ranch areas. We are paying the same indexed fuel taxes and sales taxes as these other zones, yet we are effectively excluded from the transit network. Why is the Southwest McCarran Loop not currently a priority zone in the Move More study, given its clear similarity to the successful Somerset model? I'm asking this committee to recommend that the Southwest McCarran Gap be formally included in the 2026 Transit Optimization Plan as a flex ride pilot zone. Furthermore, I ask that we bundle this transit vision into our roadway projects. As we reconstruct intersections at the Lakeside and Plumas intersections of McCarran, let's ensure we are installing the pads and infrastructure needed for flex ride boarding today rather than expensive retrofits tomorrow. Our tax dollars are fixing the pavement. Let's make sure they are also providing the service. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul, for your comment, and thank you for your well-organized speech as well.
Okay, I'll be putting that in writing too on an email to the CMAC email address so you guys can review it. And if you have any questions after you folks adjourn and digest a little bit, be happy to discuss that further with you. Thanks again.
Of course. Thank you, Paul. All right. Damian Cole, go ahead.
Hi, yes. Thanks for having me back. It's been a long time. Just wanted to make a quick comment that right before the meeting, I went ahead and made public a presentation, which actually I created 4 months ago, prior to my whole health issue thing that's been going on. It is a presentation of my plan for the Washington Street Bikeway, which is what I was offering as an alternative to Vine Street. So it's a 20-minute presentation. The first 10 minutes shows the plan itself, and the second 10 minutes talks about the necessity, the reasons why. So I won't go into big detail about it, but I will go ahead and post a link to that for anyone who wants to watch it, and they can watch it for themselves. And also I want to put it into the public comment so that way the RTC board has an actual chance to look at the link. I haven't been able to get to the board meetings. As I said, I had surgery. I can't really get around very well, and I'm still in recovery. So it's been something that I've been wanting to share, but I just haven't had the opportunity to. So thanks for that.
All right. Thank you, Damian Cole, and I hope your recovery continues to go well as well.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have any further public comment today before we get into the rest of the meeting?
Hello, this is Dora Martinez. I would like to make a public comment, please.
Of course, go ahead.
Thank you. So good morning. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the CMAC committee. I'm making a public comment towards the Move More with RTC. I was very surprised and concerned about one of the questions, well, several of them, but one that caught my ear is the door-to-door question, and that's only for RTC Access client who are disabled. And I'm disappointed that RTC put that there for the general public who does not understand nor use that service, and they would have an opinion on people with disability and what we need. We cannot continue to be oppressed and be thrown under the bus so others can have a better transportation. It has to be equal and equitable to all. A person on a wheelchair cannot be dropped off at a curb and see you later, I hope you make your way home. Or a person who is blind cannot be dropped off on a curb because the guide dog doesn't read and it's a new location and it's, let's say it's black ice and snow, all the landmarks are buried and hope that we find the door that we need. That question should never been on that survey. I'm very uncomfortable in speaking out a lot, but Mayor Shibi told me that I need to speak up because that service cannot be taken away because people with disability need that. That's part of paratransit. People who are drivers for paratransit, RTC Access, they don't even do stairs because somebody fell down. So because safety of the drivers, they do not do steps. If there's 2 steps, drivers are not allowed to bring and help the person up to their door. It's up to the client to do that. But to stop the door to door and just put them at a curb is not safe. So I hope that even though the survey is out there and people who are RTC eligible, certified client, because we got to go through the whole, yes, we are disabled and we need the service, and we get to be certified 3 or 5 years. If that gets taken away, our quality of life is gone, because transportation is important for people with disability to go to grocery shopping, go to school, go to work, bring their family to where they need to go, just like everybody else. And one more thing before my time is up, the flowing bus stops. I got a good explanation. I'll be quick, Ryan. Okay, I lost my train of thought. Fuck. The flowing bus stops. The email was, descriptive, narrated very well, but there was no map and I couldn't see. So I think I need to see that, because I don't know if you all did a study and if there was safety factors for people who are disabled, who get off on the flowing bus stops. Where are they going to find their way to the sidewalk? The bikers, the bicyclists are going to cross that path. Are they going to stop? Is the blind person going to be able to see them? Is the people who are hard of hearing going to be able to hear them saying, wait, I'm this way or whatever? It's just... So please make sure. Oh, God. I think I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dorley. All right. Any other further public comment? Okay. I don't think we have any more public comments. So we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Approve the February 4th, 2026 committee meeting minutes. I'll need a motion and a second. Pana, you have your hand raised?
Yes. I wanted to motion with one very small revision. Under item, this is Pana Stauffer for the record. Under item 5.3, last paragraph, there's an email describing, there's a sentence describing my remarks that says, she believes that an email from an HOA could significantly increase awareness of school-related transportation issues. I wanted to ask that that sentence be deleted just because I don't remember saying exactly that. But the rest of what I did say is already captured in the paragraph. So if that sentence can be deleted, then I motion to approve. Thanks.
Okay. Lolita, is that possible to get that amended?
Yes, I'll get that amended.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And then do we have a second for that? This is to approve the meeting minutes with that small...
I'll second, but I wasn't present, so I don't know if I should.
That's a good point. I mean, I think that's okay.
All right, I'll second it then.
Okay, second. All right, sounds good. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
All right, we have 2, 3 ayes. All right, all opposed? Okay, we didn't get a lot of ayes, but we also got no opposition, so I think that passes. All right, moving on to agenda item number 5, information and discussion items. There's no action here from us, but the purpose of the committee is to provide information, advice, and recommendations regarding certain regional planning documents, proposed major transit service changes, and proposed transit fare policy changes as part of RTC's public participation plan, as well as information and advice on benches, shelters, and transit stops in accordance with Assembly Bill 214. RTC staff selects and presents items that are intended to further that purpose. Following a presentation by RTC staff, committee members will have the opportunity to ask questions, discuss, and provide feedback pertaining to the item. All right, we have 2 items today. We'll start with item 5.1, provide information, advice, and recommendations regarding the status and draft recommendations of the Move More with RTC Transit Plan. All right. Do we have a presentation for that today?
We do, and I can share my screen.
All right.
So you should be able to see that, I believe, now.
Yep, it's up. Yep.
Perfect. So real quick, my name is Alex Cruz, Senior Transit Planner for RTC Washoe. And I'm going to go over the draft recommendations of the Move More with RTC Transit Plan. It is kind of a long presentation, so I'll try to speed through it as best as possible, so we have time for questions and everything else. I would also recommend, if we happen to run out of time, we do have on rtcwashoe.com/movemore, our survey is up with these draft recommendations also on there, available. So feel free to go onto the website, do the survey, fill out the questions. It is tailored again, similar to the last one. If you happen to say you only ride RTC Ride, it would only give you the questions about RTC Ride. If you happen to ride Flex Ride, it will give you the Flex Ride. Same with Access. So if you happen to not use Access, you won't even get those questions. And feel free to give us as much detailed info on the recommendations as you want. The more info we get on these recommendations, the better it is for us. They are drafts, so we're not glued to any of these. So the more we hear about it, the better off we are, and then we can make any adjustments and changes or remove anything if we need to. So with that, I'll jump into it. So what is the Move More with RTC? We kind of went over this the last presentation, but it is basically a renaming of our short-range transit plan, which was our previous plan was that Transit Optimization Strategies Plan. And it basically guides our capital and operational improvements for fiscal years 2026 through 2030. And it's a public transportation department work plan. It just kind of helps us decide how exactly we're going to go about making those changes for our transit system. That includes Access, it includes Flex Ride, includes Ride, and it also includes some of those senior mobility programs as well. And it can be capital improvements, like I said. So that's like things like purchasing of buses, that those larger items, and also operational, so those day-to-day things. And it also kind of helps inform that regional transportation plan. So what was different from our last plan is this one had a much more bigger focus on Access, Flex Ride, and our senior mobility programs. We just want to make sure that we were capturing the entire transit system as a whole this time around. So where we're at is, we're right here in that phase 2 of the project. So we did that first initial community feedback. We had our consultant do a service review, and we did that first survey. So now we're working on, we have those draft recommendations that they've come up with. We have a survey out until March 20th, and we're trying to get as much feedback as we can. And then once we get that feedback in, we'll discuss with the consultant, and then we'll take our final recommendations to the board sometime in spring. So probably April, maybe May of 2026. So what we heard, we had a little bit of, this chart kind of shows exactly what we heard on those surveys. The gap is the difference in where people ranked certain items. So like if we look at the first line of RTC Ride, that frequency of buses, how often the bus comes, the average importance meant that on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 was the most important for our rider. And then that average of satisfaction is how they actually felt about the service. So from a 1 to 5, 5 being good, 1 being bad, then we were hoping to see a 5. But when we have that gap, that's where the importance to the rider and the actual feelings on that service are kind of showing up. So if we have a negative, that means we're not quite where we want to be as far as the satisfaction goes. And if you have a positive or neutral, then it means that the importance and the satisfaction are kind of matching up. So we still got, the frequency of buses, which is very important. I think it's one of those things that we'll always get. The buses arrive on time, so that on-time performance was also very important. And as far as where we're going, so that location served. And then when in terms of Flex Ride, similar, so on-time pickup ability to get a ride where you actually want to go, and where you can travel. And again, all this is available on our Move More page as well, so we can kind of get it a little more into it as well. And same with RTC access. Where can you travel was important, ability to get a ride when you wanted to travel, and on-time drop-off at the locations. So similar, that on-time performance and where can you go. And then as far as some of those mobility services, does the program meet your needs? We did okay with the very well and somewhat well. We did have plenty of people that felt maybe it wasn't, and they weren't sure, felt strongly enough. And then as far as experiencing any challenges using the transportation subsidy, a large percentage had no challenges. A large percentage also had some minor challenges, and then significant challenges was about 13%. And then does this monthly $60 subsidy cover your typical transportation needs? Only 22% said it was sufficient, and 71% no, that they often need to pay extra. So if we were to look at some of the goals for Move More this time around, they're very similar to the goals from the last TOPS process. So enhanced mobility for all residents of Washoe County. That is fixed route and microtransit. It also included access, minimum frequencies, and span. So that kind of carried over. Goal 2 is services safe, reliable, comfortable, and customer focused. Again, that probably a little bit of the combination of that capital side, making sure that we have nice, new, clean vehicles, but also that we're reliable and we're showing up on time when we're supposed to be. And then goal 3 is to deliver that service cost effectively. We are a public transit agency. We use public funds. And so we want to make sure that we're using those funds correctly and as cost efficiently as possible. So we don't want to be using service when it's not needed or too frequent a service, things like that. And then promoting transit service as part of a sustainable future in Washoe County. So that's making sure that our transit is in areas that it is needed and is frequent. It also should mix well with some of those other modes of transportation in the city. And then when possible, we should be looking at how does that help the air quality in the region. So that could be anything from getting more people to ride the service, which means less cars on the road, to also being use of alternative fuels or low emission and no emission vehicles. And so what we kind of learned from the survey and from the service review is that what we needed is later and more frequent early evening service. So that time between about 3 and 6 p.m. Is where more people are starting to ride the service. So we can look at having more bus service available during that time. And then later and more frequent weekend service. So if you remember from the previous presentation, we had mentioned that weekend service was now just as frequent as weekdays in the previous service that plan that we did. So it shows that weekends are getting a lot more popular this time around. So later and more frequent service is very important. Some changes to route alignments to improve our ridership, and then no real changes to the regional connector or the Rapid Virginia line. We want to see some changes to the senior mobility services, some access service policy recommendations, and then just some fare system in general recommendations. So getting into the ride recommendations, this is kind of a difficult chart to really take in kind of quickly, but I'll go over it as best as possible, and then we'll probably move on fairly quickly. But the idea being that this is what the new proposed frequency would be. The arrows that are basically pointing to the right is where we would be increasing the frequency of the service. If the arrow is pointing to the left, that's probably a decrease in the service. And then we're also kind of cutting off and trying to stabilize a little bit some of those hours that the services run. So our more frequent services try to start around 4 a.m. Some of those other routes can start around 5, but then again, we're trying to put a lot of those routes on similar time frames, so we don't have routes that terminate too early and then causing people to have issues with connections. So this is the weekday table. As you can see, like the Route 14 would have a fairly large increase in the afternoons, but would also be decreasing the frequency during the majority of the day. Route 9 would be an increase basically all around as far as how often it comes. And again, we'll go over route by route a little bit later. This is just kind of a nice overview of it for the weekdays. Going to Saturdays, again, similar. We're proposing a lot more ridership, a lot more service on Saturdays and Sundays. So you'll see a lot of these right-facing arrows where the 5, the 12, the 13, the 14, the 15 all are going to have increased ridership or increased frequencies. Again, we're going to cut off some of those end trips that are at 4 a.m. or 12 o'clock at night, just due to low ridership. And then what we're going to do is throw those service hours into those midday frequencies and early evening frequencies. That would cause a little bit of a slower frequency on the Lincoln line. On the weekends, it's a 12-minute frequency. We're proposing 15, so not a huge jump, but that does provide a lot of service that we can redistribute to some of those other routes. And as far as Sundays goes, Sunday, we're proposing it would match the Saturday service. So it looks a lot fuller on this slide, but basically right now, Sundays have a little bit less frequency than Saturdays, but they're pretty close. So what we're proposing is matching the hours exactly to Saturday and then matching the frequency on all the routes as well. Just makes it a little bit easier for everyone, knowing that you don't have to learn a Saturday schedule, a Sunday schedule, and a weekday schedule. We would just have the one weekend schedule and the one weekday schedule. So getting into the actual specific routes, Route 9, just a schedule. I'll kind of jump over this one fairly quickly, but basically it would just be increasing a little bit of frequency and then cutting off those trips after 11 p.m. on weekdays and weekends. Route 12 is the first one that we would actually have a route alignment change. Right now, what we do is we run on the backside of Renown on Coonsley. And what we're saying is we would change it to run on the front side on Mill. So it would run right in front of Renown Hospital. And so it would kind of just make it a little bit easier, which I think would be helpful for riders. And then the second part of the adjustment on the route is due to the new arena that's going in at the GSR. So whereas before we would go on the front side, pick up riders at the 2 stops and then kind of go around the parking lot, the new alignment goes on the backside of GSR. They would put in a bus stop on the backside as well. And that's just because we wouldn't be able to access that road as it goes away from because of the arena. Again, there's a few changes as far as the frequency would be increased, but we would also get rid of some of those end trips. Route 13, another one, just for the most part, is increasing frequency. Weekends, it would be a 45-minute wait headways versus 30 on the weekdays. We'd cut off some of those end trips at the far end of the night, again, due to low ridership. Route 14, similar, operate 45-minute frequency weekdays and weekends, eliminate some of those trips after 10 o'clock just due to low ridership. And Route 54, another one that actually has an alignment change. There's 2 kind of big changes. The first one being on the south end of the route by Meadowood Mall. Rather than popping out to McCarran and then continuing on, it would actually go down to the Northern Nevada Medical Center that's down there, and also pass by the VA that's right there before getting back onto Longley. And then further down, we would realign in the industrial area, go down. So rather than kind of weaving in between some of those warehouses, we would go down the road that I'm forgetting right now, but it's a road that I believe we're already on as far as I believe Route 14 goes anyways. So we're trying to kind of almost create a transfer point and just have another route that kind of uses that same alignment. Route 56, another one that doesn't really change. It's just frequencies getting increased and then getting rid of some of those end trips. Route 1, same thing. Alignment does not change. It's very popular. We don't want to get away from that. 30-minute frequencies still. And then we would probably drop down to 60-minute frequencies towards the end of the night, just because of those. There's not as much of a need to have 30-minute frequencies so early, so we'd switch to 60-minute on those really early mornings, late nights. Route 11 does have a alignment change. The big change is, rather than doing our turnaround at Howard, we would extend the route down to Legends and do the roundabout at Legends. So it just creates another connection point for the Route 11, really being east to west, and just kind of going to another major area that people want to go to, which is Legends. And then we would just kind of continue with those frequencies adjustments in later nights. The Lincoln, the big one, like we mentioned, is the weekends dropping from 12-minute frequency to 15-minute frequency. That really doesn't seem like a lot. 3 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, but it does actually help a lot with the availability of service hours, so we can redistribute those to those other routes. Route 4, nothing really changes. We would reduce the span just because of those trips that we don't really have anyone riding, maybe 2 or 3 people, so we would cut those down to more standard hours. Route 6 and 16 is probably one of the big ones that you may have noticed. They're 2 of our routes that are sort of short and tend to be a little bit underperforming. So the suggestion is actually to combine them into one big route, tentatively called Route 36. The idea being that we're going to take the most popular sections of Route 6 and 16 and put them together. And it would also create another connection point from, if you happen to be in downtown Reno and you wanted to go to Idlewild Park, you can still do that. If you happen to live in that area, well, something that we had heard is high school students that lived off of the Route 16 had to go down to downtown before going over to the Route 6 to make it to Reno High School. This would be a one-trip ride for them. And then we're also actually connecting it to the Fireside Walmart, so it would be another way for riders to get to that Walmart as well. And this would be, for the most part, a 60-minute frequency. Route 7, no real change. Again, it's just basically that frequencies and those end trips. And then Route 2 would have a small adjustment. Basically, what we're doing is, rather than we're going to provide service to the Sparks Senior Center, so we just extend the route just a little bit, so it actually passed in front of the Senior Center and back out. We would tentatively do it for the entire week, but after a year, we'd probably reevaluate it and see if that Senior Center stop is needed on the weekends, just because it tends to be mostly Monday through Friday place. But so if for whatever reason there's no ridership on the weekends, then we can cut it off and just say, we have a weekday alignment and a weekend alignment, but we would do this after a year or so. No, other than that, there's no real change on this route. No stops are being changed. Route 5, just a schedule change. Again, increased frequency. Route 15, same thing, some increased frequencies on the weekends, and just elimination of one of those really early morning trips. Route 18, same thing, frequency changes, but no actual route alignment changes. And then Route 21 is going to be another one that has a fairly large adjustment. What we're proposing is cutting off that the service to the Northern Nevada Medical Center, just due to low ridership. That we do have 2 stops there, one right after Vista Boulevard and then one at the actual hospital, neither of which gets more than 5 riders a day. What we propose doing is going down Vista, turning onto Bering, and actually turning around right in front of Reed High School. So if you remember, we also had some transit propensity maps in the previous proposal that we did, or previous presentation, and it showed that there was a lot of transit propensity in that area between Reed High School and the shopping center across the street from Reed. It shows that people were wanting transit, and we just didn't have it available aside from FlexRide. So what we would do is we would make that little turnaround right there and then come right back. The hospital, Northern Nevada Medical Center, would still be serviced by FlexRide, so it's still available. So we're not fully cutting it off. It just wouldn't be on fixed route anymore. Some of the other service recommendations that we have will include FlexRide and Access. FlexRide, the wait time standard going from 20 to 30 minutes is basically to kind of to make it a little more comparable with fixed route. A lot of our headways on fixed route are 30 minutes, so increasing that wait time standard from 20 to 30 minutes just makes it a little bit more comparable with fixed route. We want to allow those advanced reservations up to 3 days. So if you happen to use this service for work, and rather than calling every day to schedule, you can do it up to 3 days. And actually, this would be very similar to Access in the sense that you can have that subscription. So work and school trips that are just done over and over and over, you could actually set up a recurring ride. And then we're considering introducing a $1 fare for additional passengers booked on the same ride. So if you and your, let's say, coworker are going from similar places to work, then one person can just schedule the ride, and you put in that you're having an increased additional passenger, and rather than paying $2 for the one-way ride and then $2 for that second passenger, it would be $3 for both people to ride together. And that's just kind of increase that efficiency of, if we have people that are going from similar starting locations to similar ending locations, we want to encourage them riding together, booking together, to make that efficiency a little bit better. And then another thing that we consider is that pilot commingling of Access and FlexRide services only on the weekends. So on weekends, having Access rides and Flex rides being on the same vehicles. Again, for efficiency, trying to make sure that we're using the vehicles that we have available in the best way we can. Access, this was brought up a little bit earlier, but changing the service model from door to door to curb is kind of to allow for that commingling. Curb-to-curb service makes it just a little bit easier for the drivers. We're not getting rid of door-to-door service. What we're saying is, if you have door-to-door and you need door-to-door, that's perfectly fine. We would request that just let us know when you sign up for Access, and when you request a ride, check off that it's door-to-door service needed. Perfect. The driver will still get out, still be able to help you, and we'll be able to keep it that way, the way that it's always been operating. But we do have a lot of Access riders that don't need that door-to-door service, so this kind of makes it a little bit more efficient for us when we know if we don't have to pick up someone at the door, then the app will let them know, hey, your vehicle's arrived, the driver can stay in the bus, and they can hop out, walk up to the bus, hop on, and it'll be on to the next ride. So we won't be getting rid of door-to-door. It'll just be make sure you sign up for it and let us know, and door-to-door will still be provided. We do want to increase that on-time performance standard to 90% of trips arriving within 10 minutes before and 20 minutes after. Again, we just want to make sure that we're being as efficient with our service as possible across Access and FlexRide. Improve that hold time standard to 2.5 minutes with a 5-minute maximum. We do have a AI service that answers most calls nowadays, and it picks up almost instantly. So what we're saying is, if someone needs to talk to a human being, the most they should have to wait is 5 minutes, and the standard should be 2.5 minutes. And that's just because we having a human being available and busy, it might take a little while, but majority of our calls are being handled by the AI. So we just want to reduce the amount of time that people are on hold. We would increase the fare to $4, something allowed under FTA regulations. It says you can charge double what your fixed route service costs. And this is just to kind of keep up with the rising cost of providing that service. I think we've mentioned it before that access is our most expensive service to operate, with costs only going up. So this just kind of help with some of that, those costs. And then again, just commingling access and flex ride service on weekends to see if that helps us with that efficiency. When it comes to the senior mobility programs, which is that taxi service, the Uber service, and the Lyft service, we want to put it all under a new program, basically call it Connect Ride, and they would all be working together. And what we would do is use essentially a debit card that RTC distributes that would put those $60 that we do for that taxi Lyft vouchers, put it on that debit card, and you can use it to pay for your taxi, your Uber, your Lyft, your Flex Ride, and your ride services. So basically everything is available on one card, just making it a little bit easier for riders. Eligibility, we would increase the age for eligibility to 65 for new users. If you happen to be under 65 right now, you'd get grandfathered in. So if you're 60 years old right now is the current age. So those people would have 5 more years of being grandfathered in. But going forward, we would ask to be 65 and above. Connect Ride, again, same thing. It would be seniors, RTC access customers, and veterans with ID. And then for anyone that doesn't happen to have a smartphone available to book their rides, we would make a reservation phone number available for them. We are also considering implementing a 25% copay for customers. That's only for households with income above 200% of the federal poverty level. So if you happen to have an income at 225% above federal poverty levels, we would have that 25% income, which would be $15 to get your $60. But if you happen to be below that, it would continue to be free and operate the same way it does right now. As far as fare technology, we are trying to move towards a cashless onboard fare system, just because handling cash is very time consuming and also very expensive. You have to have that fare box on the vehicles. You have to have somebody that's willing to count and collect it. So it ends up taking a lot of time and takes a lot of money. So if we're able to move to cashless, then it would be operationally a little bit better for us, and it would actually help with on-time performance as well. We do have fare capping on our vehicles, but we haven't done a great job of discussing it and making sure that we have it the way we want to. So it would be really talking about token transit and letting them know that we want to let the community know that if you're using token transit and you're using the same card to pay for your rides, then once you pay for $3 worth of rides, then it's not going to let you pay for anything more than that, because that is a cost of our one-day pass. And if you don't happen to have the money to buy a 1-week fare pass, token transit would still cap out if you happen to do it every day and you're just paying it as you go. Once you reach the cost of that 7-day pass or that 31-day or 30-day pass, then token transit stops charging you there as well. So like I said, it is available. We just haven't done a great job of discussing it and getting it out into the community. But that is very helpful for someone if, for whatever reason, maybe you're not able to afford those passes at the time. That's fine. Token transit will